Do I have a special episode of the podcast for you today? Today, I am joined by business strategist, energetics expert, and a dear friend of mine, Kerry Rowett. And she is sharing three intuitive insights that she has had for you, the listeners of my podcast, that will change the game for you in the year 2025. I hope you get some big ahas from this episode, so make sure you stick around. I am so excited for today's episode of the podcast because I have the incredible business strategist and energetics mentor, and also a dear friend of mine, Kerry Rowett, on the podcast. A big warm welcome, Kerry.
Thank you, Claire. I'm so excited to be here today. I cannot wait for this.
Do you know, I just had this thought then. I start a lot of my episodes by saying, I'm so excited to have this person, but I genuinely am really excited to have the amazing guests I have on my podcast. But before we dive into everything we're going to cover today, I thought it might be a great place to start if you could just introduce yourself to the listeners.
Of course. So as you said, I'm a business strategist, I'm a business energetics mentor, and I work with a lot of really incredible entrepreneurs. I have done for many years, a lot of people who are very well known in the online business space. I've been in business for over 15 years now, and I started out as a kinesiologist, seeing clients in person in Melbourne. And over time, I gathered new skills. I started to work more with business clients because I was having a lot of success myself in attracting clients and in moving online. And over time, that developed and it grew until working with people on growing their businesses became the primary way that I do work with my clients. And that is in my one-on-one sessions, and it's also in my mastermind where I support my clients with the business strategy, energetics, healing, and psychology support they require. They just get out of their own way and actually move forwards and achieve those goals that they most desire to achieve.
So when you said some well-known names, I know you don't want to breach any client confidentiality, but a lot of people do speak out that you are their secret weapon. Can you drop some names for us of people that you've worked with?
Of course, I worked with Denise Duffield-Thomas like many years ago now, when we were much more, baby entrepreneurs. Even Denise was, and Leonie Dawson, who is a client to this day, Bridget Asselmont. I have worked with you, Claire. There are so many different people I have worked with. I'm trying to remember who has spoken out about it publicly and who has kept it tight to their chest. But yes, a lot of people that people have heard of in the space, definitely.
And it's really interesting, that kind of dynamic around, I know for me that I've had some really like high profile clients, and we obviously we really need to respect the fact that they don't need to share, that the energetic exchange of paying the money is sharing. They don't have to, but equally I've had a lot of my beautiful clients over the year who's publicly come and shared on the podcast or shared testimonials about the work that we've done together. But I am a big believer people don't have to. And, I know that sometimes people said, I don't want to come or I don't want to share. And I'm like, that is totally fine. There is absolutely no obligation to do so. So I love that you've respected that as well. But let's talk a little bit about, because you said business strategist and energetics mentor, and I know that this is a bit of a shift for you. You're a very clever woman when it comes to helping people in business. And I wonder if maybe this is why you've started to actually embrace that term business strategist. Has this been a recent shift? And tell us what's led to that.
It's really a shift that I have probably made during 2024 in terms of owning that. There is no question that all of these seven-figure entrepreneurs that I work with, yes, they come to me to work on their energy. We do energetics work. I use a lot of intuition and I use a lot of different tools to help them to shift their energy and to make changes. But Also, we are always talking strategy, but I just didn't see that as one of the primary things I was doing. And this is not because my clients were not telling me it was. I can remember 10 years ago when I was still in Melbourne, a client telling me, Kerry, I get more out of working with you than I'm getting out of my $50,000 mastermind with US dollars, by the way, for 6 months with one of the big name guys in the States. And I heard that, but I didn't really hear that. And I have had so many other clients. One of my clients owns an 8-figure business and she's been working with me for 15 years. And she credits me as like being one of the essential people on her support team. And we talk strategy a lot. But even when she says, like, you're genius, Kerry, I still didn't even hear that. But this was the year that I really started to hear it. And I started to own it. And then I started to allow that to allow me to show up differently and to go deeper into understanding why that was. What exactly was it that I was doing? And then being able to put that into frameworks and models and processes that I could articulate so that it wasn't just, I don't know, I just read your energy and then I know exactly where it is that you need to move. I know the pathway that's going to make sense for you, that's going to be the most streamlined and abundant pathway for you. This is, the gaps that I'm seeing, and these are the opportunities, and this is what I can see is going to come in, and this is how to respond to that, right? That is very personalized. That is really in the moment. And I needed to look at how do I translate that into IP and thought leadership that I can actually articulate to others so that I understand how people get results and I'm able to explain exactly how I support other people to get results. So there was a lot of that deeper work that I had to do, not just to own it intellectually, but to break it down.
Yeah, wow. And I love that you've stepped into your zone and confidence. And I feel so much like 2024 has been like a gateway year, and 2025 is going to be a breakthrough year for you and your business. I also want to share, I don't know what is going on. I have had goosebumps going on and off since we've started talking. Do you want to share any insights into what's going on with me there?
I think what you're tapping into is like there is this portal of opportunity. And this is where I want to bring everyone into this same energy that today we're going to be talking about intuitive insights that are really going to change the game for you in 2025. And we can start here that there is this portal of opportunity right now. We've created this container even within this podcast episode, and you can use the insights that we're going to be talking about here to catalyze real change for you. So that's what you're tapping into, Claire.
Mhm.
It's this,
There it goes again.
this potential, this possibility. This is not a passive process. This is not, I'm going to listen to Kerry talk about some intuitive insights and I'm going to wait and see whether they come true. That is not the energy. These are energies that you get to step into, you get to choose to work with, and you get to decide, am I going to capitalize on this? Am I going to use this in a way that is going to change the game for me? Or am I going to just let it wash over me like a waterfall and see what happens? Quite honestly, it will probably make a shift anyway, but I recommend working with the energy and with the insights in a more proactive way.
And so specifically, what we're going to be talking about today is some intuitive insights that you had specifically for the listeners of my podcast. Now, explain to like people like, how does that work? I know that the first time I did a a healing with you that was for a group of people, I got to be like, how's this working for how does she know whether I was going to listen or not listen? Can you explain to me, if people are listening going, how do I know that this is meant for me? How can you explain that a little bit further?
Yes. Well, that's the context. And so when I'm tuning in, I am setting the intention that these insights are specific to the listeners of the Clare Wood podcast. And of course, if you never listen, but you're not hearing these words anyway, but it's obviously for those people who do tune in and who do listen. And that can be at any point throughout 2025. You don't need to go into your head and go, hang on a second, I am listening to this in August 2025. Was Kerry actually thinking about me? Like, just let yourself receive the information and allow yourself to use it. So as to how I actually developed this gift myself, it was via Reiki. Now, my Reiki master did say to me at one point, because you keep saying this comes from Reiki or this is Reiki, I have all these students arriving who are like, I want to learn to do what Kerry does. Like, I want to learn to be able to, read energy and to be able to speak to that and even speak into the future and work with groups and to be able to, tune in and heal in this way and also like provide readings in this way. And that's not really true. Like, she kept on saying to me, that's not really Reiki. That is actually your own intuitive gift, which Reiki helped you to step into, okay? It catalyzed that. So, right, when you do learn Reiki though, you learn how to tune into the energy of a different person and to, with their permission, and to provide a reading, provide a healing for that person. And you do receive very specific insights. Anyone can do this, even though you might think, I could never do that. Like, you can. And then you can look at how to do that in a group. But really, that was something I just decided to do. And I did it. I developed that myself. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like I was specifically taught how to do that. And I guess it's one of those skills, like, is it innate? There was obviously some learning in it, but is it also a gift? Like, it's a combination of all of those things. So all I would be doing if I had any level of skepticism is just going, well, if there was an opportunity in here for me to receive some information that could help me, do I want to receive that? Yes or no? Like, that's really the question that we want to ask, so that we step out of the skeptic and step into, what does this mean for me? How am I going to use this? If nothing at all resonates, it's okay. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. And it was really interesting, something you said to me off air as well, is that you are doing this for other podcasts as well, and you've got very different insights. It's not like you've just got this rinse and repeat message to share with everyone. So this really is, if you are listening to this episode, these intuitive insights specifically for you as a listener of the Clare Wood podcast. And specifically the things that Kerry's going to share could change the game for you in business in 2025. So I'm really, really excited to dive on in. Whenever you're ready, Kerry, feel free to share the first insight.
let's drop in. So where I'm going to start is just an overview of the year. So what came through as I was tuning in, I got the 3 insights that we're going to be talking about. And then after that, I received this broad overview of the year. So when you are listening back to this episode throughout 2025, because I do recommend you come back and pay attention to where you're at, what has already come to fruition, what you're already actively working with, what changes you have noticed, you're going to be able to see, oh, how did that play out for me? So coming into the year, first quarter 2025, the energy that I'm getting is it's go time. Like, it's time to change the game. And so the year is going to start with pace, and that is going to kick in for you at some point during January. So obviously a lot of people take holidays during January, including myself. And so the message was, it's going to drop in at some point during January, even if it's the very last day. So if you have children and you're in Australia, then for a lot of people, right at the end of the month tends to be when kids are going back to school. So don't think about this on the 10th of January and then think oh my God, well, that didn't happen. Just let that month play out. And so this year is really about showing up, being bold, and taking up space. First quarter of the year, planting a lot of seeds. And there are going to be opportunities that are going to be coming your way too. And I want you to use your discretion. Do not just say yes to everything. You'll find out why when we get to quarter two. And there's just going to be a lot of interest in what you're doing. So how are you going to capitalize on that? And so you're wanting to set an intention around that as you are listening now, unless quarter one has already passed, is like, what is the intention? What is the attention that I'm actually seeking here? What, would I like the benefit to be? So for example, we don't want it to just end up being, gee, my reels just really went off in quarter one, right? We want it to be there was a direct positive impact in my business. Second quarter, this is where I'm seeing you and feeling you really busy in the work. So things are coming to fruition from those seeds that you planted. And so you're going to want to be really discerning again here around, is there anything that I am able to let go of? Is there a different level of support that I'm requiring? What choices do I need to make so I don't get buried in this, so I don't become overwhelmed here? And then as you move into quarter three, what came through here that's going to be really important, it's partnerships. And so there might be somehow that you partner with somebody in a particular way that you haven't done before. Relationships, connections, and your network in some way is going to have a really big influence in third quarter. So that might feel general now, but when you listen later in the year, might be like, oh yeah, that was actually really true. These are the things that happened. That was significant for me. And then if we look to Q4 2025, communication is really key here. And this is one of the insights that we're going to get to in a minute. And messaging is really important. And there are big changes to your business, within your business, by Q4, within Q4, which are connected to this communication and messaging, the work that you have been doing during 2025. So that is your high-level overview. And so Claire, should we dive into insight number one now?
Yes, please. Let's go.
Okay, so first insight, and this is around an energy that you can really work with to help you in 2025. And this is around you reclaiming an old identity. And so I want you to think about this. The way this came through is that there is an aspect of an older identity that you left behind at some point, and it's kind of like you forgot about it. So don't worry, stay with me. I am going to explain this. So when we think about identity, we will often only really think about this in the sense of upgrading. So we're stepping into the new identity, and that's around being more powerful, more confident, more successful. And we're asking ourselves questions like, who am I going to be? Now, that is all incredibly valuable. And in this example, there is an aspect of your identity that you're going to reconnect into. And it was an aspect of your identity that was really powerful. And you might not have recognized that at the time, but you're going to be able to see it now. And it was in a specific area of your life. So that might have been business, it might have been health, might have been in your relationship, with friends, with money, in your job. And you're going to be able to reconnect this now. And there's a specific time frame around this, and it is 15 years ago. And so at the time of recording, that is 2009. Please adjust according to when you are actually listening. So I did this work too. I am a listener of this podcast. This reading, this healing is for me as well. And what was going on for me in 2009, just to give you an example, as you start to tap back in yourself to what you were doing in 2009, I started my business that year. And I was working with clients one afternoon a week outside of the job that I was doing at the time. And I was making decisions though towards the end of that year. And the decision I was making is I was going to go all in with my business the following year. And I was going to build it up to full-time capacity. Now, I'd been working one afternoon. That meant I was working with up to 3 clients a week. So this was a very bold move. And I was renting a clinic space. Then it turned out I was only going to be able to rent it for 1 day a week. I kept on having this intuition. It's going to work out. You just need to keep moving forward and just trust in the process. And by the end of 2010, I was actually fully booked out in my business. So what I really discovered as I tapped back into this, the identity that I'd kind of left behind, is just seeing like how bold I was in trusting my evidence, trusting my intuition despite the evidence, despite like what appeared to be the reality, but I kept on taking steps forward anyway. And the other piece I saw, which connects to our conversation around the strategy, I never saw myself as a strategist or a strategic at all. I did not think I had any business capabilities, and nor did I have any reason to, right? But when I looked back from this vantage point, I saw how strategic I had been. And the process that I went through and the things that I did, you could give this advice to someone who is starting a practice in any kind of modality, like, in a clinic, and it would probably work for them today. I'm like, well, that's strategy. Like, I just didn't see it in that light. And so when I bring that back into the present and I really reclaim that identity, it's like, you have always been a strategist and you use your intuition and your strategy together. And the fact that your intuition informs your strategy is actually a strength. And that's your superpower. And so bringing that together, that created a huge shift for me just when I landed this. So Claire, please tell me, what comes up for you, 2009, reclaiming an old identity?
So something that came to mind when I think about that time of my life, and again, the exact dates I can't remember, but I moved to Sydney at the time. I was single and I didn't have a job. I just moved down there because that's what I used to do. I was just so carefree, chill. And then I met a friend of a friend, and she said, "We've got a spare bedroom in our place at Balmain, which is like an inner city. It's a beautiful affluent suburb." She's like, "It's literally sitting there empty. Why don't you come and live with us? You don't have to pay rent." And I was like, okay. And I went and lived rent free with these girls for a couple of months. And I think that whole, I guess, energy around that symbolizes how I used to be around money, responsibility, all of those things. Was just like, yeah, like everything. People are like, "So you live rent free in Balmain?" So it's like, yeah, that's just how things play out for me. Everything just always works out for me. I was job hunting, but I just wasn't, what if I never get a job? I was just like, yeah, well, obviously I'm going to get a job. So, it did end up taking me a couple of months, but I wasn't at all freaking out. I wasn't panicked. I was just like, it'll happen and it'll work out for me. And interestingly, I've also reflected this morning because my husband said the kids were talking about Christmas and he said, "Mummy hates shopping." And I'm like, no, I used to love shopping when I had unlimited money and I didn't have a massive mortgage and responsibilities. I didn't even have a phone plan for so many years. And all of my income was just disposable income. And I just had this sense that everything would work out for me. And I think that now that we've got this huge mortgage, we want to build this big dream house, I think that I've got this crushing sense of, and as much as I've got a really positive money mindset, I also still am like, this is big, it feels like I've got a lot of responsibility and stress in the space of money, truthfully. And this really resonates as something where it's like, hey, what about when you just never worried about money and her room would just rock up and you crash in it, her money would just rock up, and that carefree faith that money would always show up for me is what's sort of coming through for me.
And I really love this example because it's a little more complex than the example I gave, right? Because you can't just apply that exact same mindset to now, because you do actually have these responsibilities and there will be consequences if you're just like, carefree, I think I'll just land on my feet. And you're like, it's a little bit harder these days. Like, I don't live rent free. So what is the aspect of this identity, though, that you do want to reconnect with and integrate? And you know that if you did, this is going to really powerfully support you in 2025.
I think it's an energy, it's the faith. I think it's that underlying everything always works. Like and you can have that energy even if there's, I mean, the reality is at the time, it was just pure luck that I was living rent free. I mean, you've still got to eat, you've still got to pay bills. But there's an embodiment of that excites me so much. It's a deep rooted faith and trust, and everything always works out for me that I do believe I still have at a core level. But I think that there's definitely this like a tightness that's overlying it at the moment.
And there's another piece I want to pull out for you, and that is the way that you didn't worry. So like you've got, additional responsibilities now, there's a big mortgage now, but is it true that that means it needs to feel heavy and you need to worry?
Yeah, not necessarily.
So what would you like to be able to feel instead that links back to this 2009 you?
Just the faith and the not carefreeness, because that's not quite the right word in the context, but
I reckon it's lightness.
Yeah, lightness. Yeah.
How does that feel?
Yeah, that feels really, really beautiful.
So what would be different if you moved through 2025 with this lightness?
I think that there's a magnetism that comes with lightness. There's a different kind of energy when you're just like, yeah. Like the reason why I got a free place is because it's just like, yeah, take it, leave it. Like I just knew that everything works out fine. And so it did. And I do think that there's an element of that perhaps is really, really relevant here.
I think that's going to be really exciting for you as you continue to very intentionally to connect to that. So for everyone who's listening, this is what I want you to do as well. I want you to really tap back into that 2009 timeframe and trust that you're going to be able to locate exactly the strength that you had at that time that you are not utilizing in the same way right now. But if you did, it would make all of the difference. And so this is around reclaiming this part of my identity because it is the superpower that I specifically need to succeed in 2025. And that's the energy that I want you to move through 2025 with. Let's move on to insight number 2. So this is around letting go. And so there is something that you need to let go of. So when I tuned in around this, I felt like I wanted to cry, actually. Like I just had these tears come to my eyes. And so there was some pain, some grief, and it's around something not turning out like you want yet. Okay. And so we need to be letting this go so that something even better can come through. And that is not going to happen unless you do let this pain and grief go. Okay, so this is the active part. If you listen to this podcast episode once and you're like, well, the pain and the grief is still there, well, you need to re-listen or you need to find a different way to let go of this pain and this grief. You can go see a counselor or psychologist or another practitioner if that's what's required to help you to do this. And so there's something specific that you would like to have achieved and you haven't yet. And so it did feel money related, which makes total sense because of who it is that I'm speaking to here and why it is that you're listening to Claire's podcast. And so it could be like, I haven't made this particular amount of revenue and I do feel grief around that because of what that would represent to you. And it's like, I just feel like I just haven't got there. It could be I haven't achieved that goal to buy the dream house or the house full stop, or to renovate, or to have this particular amount in investments or in savings that I really desire. There's something about it though. It's not just like, that's a shame. It's like actual disappointment, grief, pain. And it also did feel like there's other pain and grief sort of mixed up in this. So you'll be able to tap into that. And you might even notice that you have some thoughts or some memories that come up around that. And you're like, oh yeah, like this is all a little bit interlinked for me. And we're just wanting to allow all of that to process and to release for you. And so it's just sitting in your field right now and it feels heavy. And so we do want to be letting that go. So within this podcast episode, like there's healing energy woven into what it is that I'm sharing with you. And so just listening is helping you with that process of letting go. And let's just do a little bit of energy work to help with that process now. So just placing your hands at your stomach area, solar plexus, and we are using a little bit of Reiki energy here. I do love Reiki. Oh my gosh, it is so powerful. And in fact, we've had an experience of Reiki together. Claire, would you like to share? Because you did talk about this.
Oh my goodness. Kerry, we didn't actually share the story of how we've sort of, I guess, got to spend a lot of time together recently. So Kerry had done a session with me, a couple of sessions maybe, not long after my car accident. We had the pleasure of meeting last year and spending quite a bit of time together over a couple of different, initially a retreat and then a conference. And I was speaking at this conference, as was Kerry. And as I was come on stage, Kerry looked at me and she could tell that I was literally about to poo my pants. I thought I was trying to put on Kerry just looked at me and she's like, do you need some Reiki? And I was like, yes. I was like fighting back tears. She put her hand on my back and I don't know what the hell you did. It was like magic, but you must have felt my heart like boom, boom, boom through my chest. And then I sort of got to this point where I still felt nervous, but it was like, I can do this. Whereas I think that when I first walked into that room, I was like, I'm going to die. I can't get up on this stage. And so I've experienced firsthand the power of your Reiki healing, and I'm enjoying doing it as we're talking right now as well.
Yeah, and just knowing like it's very simple and yeah, it's very powerful. So I have so many stories just like Claire's. It's not just like when you spend an hour with somebody that you get to have those shifts. Like I have so many examples of where it was something very short and it could be very profound. And that's what you get to experience here as well. So it's not like, oh, it only works if you're one-on-one or it only works if you're in person. That's just not the way energy actually works. And so you can use the work we're doing right here and now to let go of this pain and this grief that is coming to you around something that has not turned out like you want yet.
I just want to share another story too, if that's all right, Kerry, because years and years and years ago, I booked in to do a Reiki healing online, and I booked in and paid for this session, and I didn't hear anything. And I'm thinking, do I Zoom her? And I just went and sort of sat down at the time and I was waiting for the call, waiting. And then as I was lying there, I was instantly like, holy smoke, something is happening to me. I don't know what's going on. I could feel all kinds of physical sensation. My eyelids were twitching, my full body was warm. And at the start, I was thinking, have I been scammed? And then as soon as I started, I was like, whoa, I don't know how she's doing this. We're not even on the phone. We're not even talking on Zoom, but she has 100% tapped into my energy field. So that was a really cool. Yeah, it was really bizarre.
Yes, thank you. That gave us enough time for that to release. And so you can release your hands now from your stomach area. And just know, like if you need to do more work to release this energy, that is totally available to you, either via this episode or in a different form that you choose. But once you have fully let that disappointment go, know that 2025 is the year that you can achieve that big dream, or something that feels even better. So let that sink in. 2025 is the year that you can achieve that big dream, or something that feels even better. So just pay attention particularly to that word, feels. If it doesn't come in the exact form, and it comes in a form that you might judge as less, but it feels great and you feel great, that is the win. And it's coming for you.
Yeah, here for that energy.
Now let's dive into insight number 3. This is our final insight. Your communication is the key to your success in 2025. I touched on this at the top of the episode when I was sharing the overview of the year for you. And this is really multifaceted. And as this insight was starting to drop in, it's like, gosh, this is like fairly general and vague. Like, my communication is the key to my success. I mean, I was tapping into like what people could be feeling and thinking as they were hearing that. And the message I got was, that might be the case on first listen. And this can happen sometimes with intuitive messages. It's like, well, that seems quite general, or that doesn't feel very punchy or specific to me. But then when you re-listen during 2025, it's going to have this weirdly specific feeling to it, because you're going to be noticing, oh, wow, yes, communication has been such a big thing this year. And so your messaging matters more than ever before in 2025. And so that might be somewhere that you are very deliberately placing your energy. You might be dialing into your message at an entirely new level. This also felt like big and important money conversations. And, you know, Clare is the perfect person to support you in those types of conversations, like with your bank, with your accountant, with your partner, with your financial planner. And this is also about noticing where you are not communicating in powerful ways and cleaning that up. Now, this was really cool. It said your words are like spells in 2025. Your words are like spells. So it's like you are casting as spells with your words, and what you're saying is then happening. And I can see you'll have multiple experiences where you say something and then it happens exactly that way. And it's going to be more than usual, and it's going to be more obvious. So I want you to be aware of this and be proactive around it. Of course, if we are recognizing that upfront, what are we going to do? We're going to be careful about what it is that we say, what it is that we are putting out into the universe. Because if we are speaking in a defeated way, in a way that's expressing what it is that we don't want, and putting that focus and energy into that, but not just our energy, our actual words, the words are the key in this specific example, like that's definitely not what we want to be doing. We want to be speaking, not in a deluded way, not in a fantastical way, but we want to be speaking in a way that is empowering and powerful and is congruent with what it is that we desire to create. And so the question to ask yourself is, how do I, at this point in time, want to improve or elevate my communication, or indeed my messaging, during 2025? And so this is around your communication and knowing your communication is the key to your success in 2025. And I want to hear how this does play out for you. So please be sure to let me know what this looks like for you.
Wow. Okay, so that's the 3.
That's the 3. So I'll take you back through them. Number 1, you are reclaiming an old identity. You have got this opportunity to reclaim an old identity and then to use that as your superpower to succeed in 2025. Number two, you are letting go. And this is around letting go of the pain or grief of something not turning out as you want yet, so that something even better can come through. And number three, your communication is the key to your success in 2025.
Oh, I love these. And I'm hoping if you're listening that you are coming at this with a really open mind, that you are, yeah, leaning in, trusting the process. And I'm really curious. Make sure you do touch base with Kerry throughout the year and share with her. Kerry, if people are loving this and want some more of your, I guess, energetics, but also the business strategy that you are so well known for in their lives, how can they work with you and connect with you?
So the best place to find me is at my website, alignandattract.com. And on my website, you will find my mastermind. That is the only way to work with me right now. I am fully booked with private clients at the moment. I also have a podcast. Clare is also on my podcast, and that is also called Align and Attract. You can find me there, and I'm on Instagram at Kerry Rowett.
And I'll put all of those links in the show notes for today's episode. Kerry, thank you so much for bringing your beautiful wisdom and magic to the podcast. Such a pleasure to have you here, and I cannot wait to see what 2025 is going to bring for us all.
I am so excited to hear how this plays out, and it has just been such a joy to speak with you today, Claire.
Thanks so much for coming on.